This frame shows that Thomas Ince was indeed the producer of this film. See my previous video for a reference to this particular aspect. I mentioned the importance of the frame, and I did not mention that there is an additional filter, and it is the curtain that is rising at the beginning. So we have the curtain, then we have the reader, and then finally we have the book. All of these things introduce us into the spectacle that this movie is going to be. First, iconic representation of Italy, the cross and the church, religion. This identifies the place. And what do we have? Harvesting grapes. So wine and religion. And not incidentally, the Catholic Mass uses wine as an element of communion. This is Hispanic architecture. The film was shot in California, clearly. And here we have the most iconic representation of an Italian, a gondolier. In the world, if there is one item that represents Italy, is definitely Venice and the gondola. Maybe the Leaning Tower of Pisa, maybe the Colosseum, but they could not represent the character as being devoured by lions in the Colosseum. So here is Venice. And here is Beppo Donnetti, very romantic, dreaming about the love of his life. He sees two lovers kissing in his gondola, not gondola, gondola. He thinks about himself with his lover, and so he's a dreamer, he's a romantic, he's a peeping Tom, and he's a goofball. So here we are introduced to the comic aspect of his character. He's a very amiable character. We transition, and here is the scene on the ship arriving to America, while everybody is cheering and happy to be arriving. He is despondent because he misses her so much. The iconic representation of the Statue of Liberty, which, by the way, is not present in Son of Italy. That is one of the things that I noticed, that for some reason Pascal left the Statue of Liberty out of his representation. He's Italian, he gets to America, and what kind of job does he get? Shoe shine. Bill Corrigan, very important, the fact that he is Irish. The Irish had come before Italians. They were Catholic. They had been discriminated against, but they knew English. And they climbed the social and political ladder quite quickly. Italians came after them, and Italians suffered quite a bit under the political bosses, Irish political bosses. And here it's how the system worked. Corrigan notices an enterprising Italian who speaks to him in English. Clearly, Beppo must have mastered the language, which not all immigrants did. There are stories about people who lived there for 50 years without ever learning English, not just Italians. And he sees he's entrepreneurial, he is pushing for the business, and there he says, have your WAP friends vote for this guy. Notice that he's not asking for a vote for himself, he's already beyond that. But he has John Casey run for alderman. So he's literally a political boss. Here is another character. We see another representation of Beppo Donnetti. He is emotional. He is waiting for his fiancée to come to America. She is ridden with anxiety. She doesn't want anyone to touch her. He is terrified of the fact that he may lose her, that she may not be there. And that shows his emotional aspect. Here is the wedding scene. He arrives late for the wedding. He's a goofball. So also he forgot the ring, if you remember, in this scene. A very amiable guy, joyful, full of life. And here is the scene when he's been told that his son is born. Of course, a male child. Again, comic relief. People loved these kind of scenes. He is emotional, enthusiastic, very expressive. He arrives at home, and what does he see? He sees his child. And now this is the opposite. The emotional response when he finds out that the child still has not gotten better, and he needs to find pasteurized milk. If you watch the movie, then you know what happened to him, and he feels completely despondent. I slow down the track here for a second to have a few moments to discuss the issue, and look at the change in his appearance, his face, when he sees the people who robbed him. It's going to be in a close-up. For the public, this is a terrifying image. This is a man who becomes an animal. Or better yet, this is the animal inside of the man that is coming out. What does it say about Italians? It's not a coincidence that the film is titled The Italian. Here is begging. Now remember that at this point, his child is still dying. He has lost completely any sense of the context. He is devoured by rage at this point. He is again become an animal. And here is the interesting scene. He looks like a bum. He's been beat up. He is dirty. He was captured by a policeman. Obviously, he doesn't look like a respectable character, but he expects Corrigan to help him out. This is a very violent scene. He throws the policeman, grabs Corrigan. I don't need to describe it to you. I want you to pay attention to the aspect of technology here. The distance between Corrigan and the Italian. It's a bum that is being kicked into the street. And while this happens, he is still unaware of what happened at home. And here is the moment when Beppo is overwhelmed by another wave of emotions, and a different kind of emotion now. His emotional state is always on full display throughout the entire film, be it joy, despair, anger, or total devastation. You remember the sequence of events here as you read in the paper, and this is where his total inhumanity surfaces. Who but an animal would devise a plan to kill a child as an act of revenge against a scapegoat. Corrigan has no responsibility, is not at fault here. He saw a bum out of his mind, crazy, hysterical, chased by the police, violent, come at him with the expectation that he will save him, and he did what every rational human being would do. And here is the moment when Beppo again reads the newspaper and turns again into an animal. The innate criminal tendencies are surfacing given the opportunity or the circumstances. And here is the expression, the moment when, again, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the violent entity in him resurfaces, and he devises the most incredible scheme. His goal now is to kill a child in cold blood, and in order to do so, he has to disguise himself, penetrate the house, and commit the act. Think about what the public saw and how the public must have reacted to this representation of the Italian.